Hello, and welcome to the Gate 7 International Podcast, your official English source for all things Olympiakos FC and Greek football. My name is Peter Thompson. I'm here with my co-hosts, Costa Levoyanis and Lambros Sirmos. We've got a special edition today. Champions League is back, people, already. It's amazing how quickly it comes back around. We've got our second qualifying round opponents, Neftci Baku, first leg coming up this week. And for that occasion, we've brought in the closest thing we can find to an expert on Azeri football, and that's Patrick Caskie. He's going to tell us a little bit about the team, what we can expect, and what we should be worried about from Baku. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to chat with you about our first Champions League tie. How's it going?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'll preface to the viewers that I'm far from an expert, but I'm probably the closest you'll get to someone who speaks English, who knows about the clubs. I watch highlights of most of the games, and with most of the Neftci Karabakh games, I watch them as well. So I can bring some information, but if you have any contentions, I'm free and fine with that. I'm not the authority on Azeri football.
Well, yeah, as we chatted about off camera, there's not a whole lot of coverage in English about football in Azerbaijan. So we appreciate having you to come on and chat with us, because you sure as hell know a lot more than we do. So that certainly counts for something. Now, I'm sure maybe some of the viewers are interested. You know, I don't think you have any Azeri heritage, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this stuff. We know that you write about some of the Turkish league as well. And I believe you're of Scottish origin. So, you're into that league as well.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Scotland. I'm on my summer holidays. I usually am in Edinburgh, going to University of Edinburgh, but now I'm in the West Coast, close to Glasgow. But I lived in Azerbaijan between 2015 and 20. I graduated from high school there. And I left in acrimonious circumstances, jetted out on a COVID sort of emergency plane. So, but on the football stuff, I'd go live to most of the Champions League games Karabakh would play. So I've been lucky enough to see them play Roma, Fiorentina, and teams like that. In general, I like football, so it's always good for the countries I've lived in. I have a vested interest in the football. So if you'll see me maybe tweeting a bit about Russian football, Azeri football, Scottish, and Turkish as well, though I didn't live there, it's a country and a footballing system I really enjoy to watch.
Very cool. And I guess you mentioned Karabakh, and people might be familiar with Karabakh because they're pretty much the Azeri team that's popped up in Champions League or Europa League the last few years. But this year it's Baku who are in the Champions League qualifying round. So how big of a deal is that, like, in terms of the rivalry there?
So Neftci historically are the team in Azerbaijan. They were the one who played in the Soviet League. Some main background of the club, they're the club of the oil workers. So in their logo, you'll see the nodding donkey, the oil pump. They have the most championships. So obviously follow the Soviet Union. The new league was set up, the Azeri League, and Neftci tied Karabakh. They both have 9 now. So it's a fairly two-legged country in terms of the actual teams who win the championships. Outside of Karabakh and Neftci, the level drops a lot. So you might see in the Conference League, there's teams like Sumgay, but they are quite poor. This is their first time in the UCL for 8 years. Karabakh had 8 in a row going on, but it was stopped this season by Neftci. Interestingly, in the last game of the season, Karabakh played Neftci. Winner takes the title, and Neftci won in the 90th minute. So it was pretty dramatic circumstances to cap off an all but weird season with no fans in the stadium, like most people have seen. But in terms of the club, football is sort of the biggest sport in Azerbaijan, but Azerbaijan isn't really a sporting country. If you might know Azerbaijan in terms of success for like wrestling or taekwondo, that's what they're good at. But football is the most popular, but they don't really get many fans in the ground. If this was in a universe in which COVID didn't exist, they'd be playing in the Boxel, which is 15K, and they'd probably get around 10 or 12K fans. Worlds away from anything you'd see in the Olympiakos stadium. There'll be no coordinated pyro. You'll see 2 small ultras groups, but the fans should provide no bearing on the Olympiakos performance. They have dealt with much more in terms of fan interaction.
Can I ask, the club, is it owned by oil and gas company, or what's the background there? You said they had a background like with the oil workers. Are they a rich club? Like what's their background there financially?
Financially, I don't think there's anything special. I think much like in Russia, there's like Lokomotiv Moscow, which is a team of the train workers. I think it's more iconography and history. I still don't think there's any connections with SOCAR, which is the big Azeri oil company, which you'd have seen at UEFA events. They sponsor a lot. They're not incredibly rich. Azerbaijan, despite having lots of oil wealth, doesn't pump it into its football per se. I don't know who owns it. I know Karabag are owned by Azersun, which is just a big conglomerate in Azerbaijan, but I don't think Neftci has any owners of any note, and certainly doesn't have the financial backing of and anywhere close to Olympiakos. This summer they have two new transfers, both on. One is a free transfer from Le Havre in League Two, and one was signed for I think €500,000 from Estoril in Portugal. So that's about the markets they shop in, is like second division in the good countries, and then they'll maybe go and foray into countries like Poland, but countries outside the top 20 in the UEFA rankings. So definitely no financial muscle to compare with Olympiakos. Probably similarly well off to middling Greek teams, probably. Not as well off as AEK or Panathinaikos, but better well off than like Apollon Smyrna and teams like that.
Got it.
And I have a question about the state. I know Baku has been a place where UEFA has been putting a ton of events, so it's not going to be played in that like main stadium that almost always seems empty when they play. It's not going to be played there. It's going to be played in a different stadium.
So the Baku Olympic Stadium, I've been there to watch the Europa League final. It's a terrible stadium, probably, because it's a circle because it was made for the European Games, which Baku hosted in 2015. So it's an athletic stadium. It's really bad. And that hosted Karabak's Champions League games, but they won't host it there because Neftci will probably pay more to rent that than they'll get in fan tickets. So they'll play at their own stadium, which is the Baksal Arena, which is in Baku. It's 15,000. It's quite cramped. Fans are close to the pitch, so it will get pretty loud, but it's nothing special, the fan atmosphere. It's a bit disappointing. You think maybe the part of the world they're in, there are a lot of good ultras groups in Turkey, in Russia, in Serbia, and we're around that. And it's disappointing.
Well, I guess I'm sort of interested to getting into the tactics here. So Baku advanced past Dinamo Tbilisi, a Georgian side. And, we didn't watch the games. We followed the scorelines, but I was wondering, like, do you have, any comments on the game in terms of how they played against Tbilisi, or, do you think that it was a deserved result? Do you think they played well?
So coming into the game, Neftci were favorites from all accounts. Everyone had backed them to win it. Dinamo Tbilisi are in quite a lot of turmoil, but despite being the favorites, they played far from it. I think the XG overall scoreline put Dinamo winners at 4-2, but it was the opposite. Neftci won 4-2. They sat back. They played 5-3-2 out of possession, and in possession they played 3-5-2. So they would just put a bank of 8 in front of Dinamo Tbilisi, and they'd force them to break them down. And obviously Dinamo Tbilisi don't really have the personnel to break down 8 players, regardless of how good they are actually defending. Olympiakos, players like Valbuena will pick open these Neftci openings. So they'll sit back and soak up a lot of pressure, especially against Olympiakos, and they'll let Olympiakos have most of the possession. It'll be a sort of you guys are going to have to break us down affair. It'll be quite boring if Olympiakos don't break through early, but I would back Olympiakos to break through early, because in their 3, they play a right back who's 19, who's like 175 centimeters. He's really small. He's on loan from Turkish team Başakşehir. They play Imboji, who's really, really slow. He's really bad. He was at fault for the second Dinamo Tbilisi goal. He tried to scissor kick, clear it, but he missed it, and then Dinamo Tbilisi just went and tapped in. And then the left centre back is quite good. But in terms of defensive pressure and trying to break it down, it won't be the quality of the defense that'll be a problem. It'll just be the men. It'll just have beating the 8, which will be the problem. In terms of in possession, when they're on the attack, there's 3 really good players for Neftci who could and should be in better teams. Namik Alaskarov is there. So they play at 3-5-2, so the 2 up top. He's the right striker. He's more of a right winger, but he's been sort of pigeonholed for system. He's really good. He scored 18 goals in last year's league campaign. He scored twice against Dinamo Tbilisi, both fantastic goals. First goal was a 35-meter chip. Second goal was a back-to-goal, bottom right corner finish under pressure. And the 2 centre mids, 2 of the 3 centre mids are very good. Mamadou Kane from Guinea, so he's played with Madi Camara on the international level, and he's nowhere near as good as Mady Camara, obviously, but he is good. He's the metronome. He's safe in possession, good at tackling, and really good stamina. And then there's the captain, Emin Mahmudov, who's an all-round centre mid as well. He has a good strike on him and likes to shoot. He's good at penalties. He's scored a penalty against Dinamo Tbilisi. But besides that, there's no real standouts. Now Mikhail Askarov would be the one if you had to point out one player to watch. If Neftci score any goals, it'll be because of him.
So it sounds to me that it's going to be like a cat and mouse game. They're going to be playing everybody behind the ball, waiting for us, and then hitting us on the counter. Are they quite a fast team in transition, or is that something probably we should be a little bit wary about? I mean, recently, our team is coming out of, pre-season, obviously, haven't played any official games. In the friendly that we played last week, we looked a little bit slow in the first 20, 30 minutes, I would say vulnerable altogether, and perhaps not too creative. And I think, Labro, you said off camera, if we start 4-3-3 conservative, it's going to be hard to break them down. But do you see Neftci causing problems on the counter?
If they were to, Yusuf Laval is the left wing back. He used to play for Cologne in Germany. He's Nigerian, 23-year-old. He's quite quick, but he is quite poor in possession. Like, he'll get ahead of steam. He'll be running. He'll look good, and then he'll run out of possession. He'll lose the ball. He lost it quite often against Dinamo Tbilisi. But I think if Olympiakos play any semblance of themselves, this should be maybe not a foregone conclusion, because anything can happen. It'll be really hot, upwards of almost 40 Celsius probably, depending on the time. If it's a night kickoff, it'll be still early 30s. But I think Olympiakos will really have to be off their game, because Neftci haven't started. They've only played Dinamo Tbilisi. Those are the only two games they've played competitively. The league hasn't started. They had a mini preseason camp in Slovenia, and they played a few of the Slovenian teams and Spartak Moscow. But it's not like you're playing a Malmo or a Norwegian team who are halfway through their league. They're equally sort of unprepared, and they've made two signings between the Dinamo game and the Olympiakos game. So if they play, you might see some rustiness of just embedding the new signings. But if anything, it'll be very disappointing if Olympiakos lose in Baku. That would be a nightmare. That's the only way to put it. But I really think that there won't be too many problems for Olympiakos.
Yeah, so building off what Costa said, the fear is here, and this is a big fear I actually hold, is Pedro Martins goes out with his 4-3-3, which he started with in the last competitive friendly, and we see Andreas Puchalakis and Jan Envia in the same team against the team that plays 8 people behind the ball. I just don't know, maybe this is a question for Peter, maybe for Costa going off, this may be a podcast tangent, but like, who is going to create? Lazar Angelovic, Matthew Valbuena had personal problems. I read he will be available, but he hasn't practiced in 10 days. Who the hell is going to create anything for Olympiakos? And will anyone really need to against this side? Maybe Lazar can do it. I don't know.
Guys, I mean, honestly, I think when we play 4-3-3 against teams like this, Mady Camara basically just turns into a number 10. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him popping up with a good game. Obviously it's not his natural position to be that far forward on the pitch, but, he's very creative and dynamic and can do big things sometimes in those positions. We saw he, had the goal in the friendly against Addis last week. So I think I could see him having a big role. I kind of expect that we will go 4-3-3 unless we go 4-4-2. 4-4-2 might actually make some sense here. I could see Hassan popping up with something on a set piece. We'll probably have a lot of the ball and probably get a lot of set pieces. So maybe this is a good game for Hassan to be in the box. And then we can play Jan and Mady as a 2-man pivot in midfield. So that could potentially make some sense in terms of something other than a 4-3-3. But who knows? Maybe it starts off a bit slow in the first half, and then Koundé comes on in the second half, and things start picking up a little bit. It's hard to say. I think we can play a 4-3-3 and probably still scrape out a 1 or 2-0 victory. It'll be an ugly one, and we'll be pissed off after the game. But I think we could probably still scrape it out just with the talent that we have on the pitch.
Kosa, any thoughts about what you expect? I think a 4-4-2 is a brilliant idea with El Arabi becoming the creator, essentially. What do you think?
I think it's going to be hard for Mathieu Valbuena to come into the team after 10 days without training, like you said. Otherwise, I would see a 4-2-3-1. In terms of what I would like to see, I would like to see Pierre Koundé getting a starting spot. He injects a lot of pace into the team and power. I think we're going to need that. We're going to need somebody that sets a tempo in the midfield. I don't like Camara going too far forwards. He presses the ball really well, but I prefer him near the circle in the middle. I think that's where he plays best. And yeah, I don't like the idea of seeing Jan Mv and Andreas Bouchalakis in the team. I think it would just be a little bit too slow. Maybe Bouchalakis is sacrificed, but that's in my mind. I think for the manager, he's obviously a key player. 4-4-2, I think, as Peter said, that could be a surprise tomorrow. Maybe a 4-4-2 with Hassan and El Arabi up front. I don't know what's on Martin's mind, but I'm a little bit concerned that if we don't score in the first half an hour, it could be a drab kind of 1-0 job at best. Who knows? I forget actually that tomorrow we have fans coming back. It's the first time we have fans in the stadium. Let's see how crowded it gets. They have an 80% capacity, no more than 25,000. I think if the fans get behind the team, that could be an important factor. That's something we missed big time last year in the European Games. So an early goal is crucial. If we get an early goal, then I think it's a 3-0 game for me. With no disrespect to Neftci, but this is really a team that we should be beating from the first leg and going to Baku for a bit of sightseeing and then just doing the job.
Yeah, so I think now we could get into quick lineups and predictions, but I want to say really excited for Jan Mv, Socrates, Oleg, these guys to play a game in front of the crowd. I hope that they really get up for it and they enjoy it, because it's been a year and a half, guys. Like, I can't believe it. Like, it's crazy. Like, we last played Panathinaikos in like February of 2020. We've forgotten. I don't remember. Like, yeah, I need to watch YouTube videos. Like, it's like that. Anyway, Patrick, I don't know if you want to go through all the personnel, but 5-3-2 is what you thought. Is that what we should be expecting? And some of these new signings, will they play? What do you think? Will they be on the bench?
I think Hugo Basto, so he's the centre back they signed from Estoril. He'll definitely be put in, just because Mercelik, their right wing back, who they're playing at centre back, that's not sustainable. Maybe against Dinamo Tbilisi, a team who are relatively peckish up front and not of the quality Olympiakos have, it's fine, but they'll need to just throw in their experienced big guys. In terms of Roman Bask from Le Havre, he might play because just to solidify the three, because Kane and Mamodov are definitely going to play. They're undroppable. And then the other centre mid has been a bit of a throw up. It's usually Sabir Bougrin, who's this. I think he's Moroccan CDM, used to play in France, but I think there won't be any lineup surprises because, I mean, they're picking from a relatively small bunch. They don't have the riches of having two fantastic players in each position that most teams in the Champions League do have. But I think if you watch the Dinamo Tbilisi game, those will be the players who will play, and that'll be the way they play. But they'll just have to hope that they're somehow going to be able to stop a team that has Yusuf El Arabi and Mari Kamara instead of the Georgian guys who play for Dinamo. So I think it should go well. As Costa was saying, I think it could easily be a 3-0. The gates will open if they score early, especially because there won't be that many fans and they're not that loud to back them up. And they don't really have a consistent experience at this sort of level. They've played a few Europa League games. Last year, they lost to Galatasaray in the Europa League 3-1. So I think we could see something like that. High scoring, but it could also be very, very, very boring. 8 men in front of the ball, and if you play Bouchalakis and Mv, who are both more holding midfielders, it could get boring, and it could just be a game of chess. And Baku, Neftci will be happy going into the game in Piraeus with anything. If there's a chance for them, I know away goals aren't a thing anymore; they've been abolished. But if they still are in the game, if they only lose 1-0, if they draw, they'll take that as a win, most definitely.
Yeah, I think personally, I think we see maybe 2-0. just because I know the team's going to be a bit sluggish. And I honestly do expect us to do a 4-3-3 with Bouchalakis and Envia, at least for the first part of the game. So I kind of expect maybe a bit like the Omonia first leg, where we get one and then take a while and maybe get a late second goal that sort of gives us a little bit of breathing room for the second leg. And then, maybe we go to Baku and get a 1-0 or a 0-0, but it doesn't really matter. That's kind of the way I see this going personally, as far as my prediction. If we do get past Baku, our next opponent is somewhat decided. We'll be facing the winner of Mura, Slovenian side, or I believe it's Ludogorets from Bulgaria. So one of those two teams will be coming up against us, which I think we chatted about off camera is not a bad draw for the third qualifying round. So we'll be looking forward to that. And then in that last round, we might have a tougher side if we get past the next round, maybe a Rangers, which is Patrick's home team in Scotland, or a bigger team like that. But of course, that's a couple weeks away, so maybe I should get ahead of myself. But boys, anything else here? Otherwise, Lambro, you got something?
I just want to add, Patrick, we don't want to have you on again if it's a Scottish team, aka Rangers. We don't want to have you on again. Sorry, you've been a lovely guest, but really don't want to have you on again for Rangers.
I hope none of you guys are forced to go on Rangers podcast. I think that's probably the second worst draw. I think Salzburg is probably the most difficult, but Olympiakos, especially because all going from Greece, the heat. Scotland's warm right now. We're having a heat wave, but you might laugh. It's a heat wave of like 25, 24 degrees, whereas Piraeus you might get up to 35, 36. But I hope if we see Olympiakos this season, it'll be in the Champions League group stages or Europa League knockouts at some point. Maybe the Europa League final. That would be good.
Yeah, that would be a blast. That would be an absolute blast.
Hey, man.
Patrick, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you coming on for a quick chat. Thank you, everybody, for listening, especially if you made it this far. We hope you enjoyed, whether you're supporting Olympiakos or Baku. Everybody enjoy the games tomorrow and next week. We'll be back with a podcast after the game to chat about the first leg. And we'll be pushing out more content. We're excited for Champions League to be back, excited for fans in the stadium once again. So everybody enjoy the game. Have a nice rest of your week, and we will see you very soon.
You just listened to an episode of the Gate 7 International Podcast, a podcast connecting Olympiakos fans from Brussels to Tokyo, from Toronto to Geneva. We are 4 Olympiakos fans from every corner of the world, bringing you news and interviews of the team you love in English. With new episodes twice a week, you will never miss out on the latest updates and stories of the team you love. If you liked what you heard, make sure to follow us on social media at Gate7INTL, give us a subscribe on YouTube, or even leave a review on all our podcast channels. Until next time, this is our team, our city and our story. Thrylos είσαι. Στο μυαλό κάτι μαγικό.